I knew something was off the second I stepped into the hallway and heard people laughing behind their hands. The list was taped to the glass trophy case near the cafeteria, big bold letters at the top. Spring Showcase Cooking Demo. Final lineup. I didn't even know there was a demo. I just knew my name was right there, dead center. Noah Briggs. Home Recipe Show and Tell. I froze. My throat went dry. Behind me, I heard it. Yo, Noah! It was Tyler Collins, followed by his crew, Ryan, Jacob, and Eli. All baseball jackets, smirks, and loud voices. Tyler grinned. Finally showing off your famous soup, huh? You gonna bring the can, or just pour it straight in front of us? Ryan added, bet it's Chef Boyardee with a side of burnt toast. They all cracked up. My face burned. I stepped back, but Jacob pulled out his phone. Come on, do a little taste test, man. Give the crowd what they want. He shoved a spoon at me with something in it. Cold, lumpy cafeteria chili. I backed into the lockers. Noah, man, don't be shy, Eli said, aiming his phone at me. Say the recipe came from your mom. Oh, wait, did she leave it on a Post-it before she bailed? I couldn't breathe. I wasn't gonna cry, not in front of them. My hands curled into fists, but I didn't swing. I couldn't. My chest felt like it was caving in. Then a voice cut through them, like a wrench through metal. Hey, that funny to you? We all turned. A tall, broad guy in grease-stained coveralls stood by the vending machines. Balding, thick arms, tired eyes. He looked like someone who fixed engines for a living, which made sense. He had a mechanic's patch on his chest. M-I-K-E. Tyler laughed. Who the hell are you? Mike didn't move. You think ganging up on a kid makes you tough? Ryan scoffed. It's a joke, old man. Relax. Mike walked forward, slow, deliberate. Looks like he's not laughing. You? They shut up. Phones disappeared. Tyler mumbled something and walked off. The rest followed. I stood there, stuck, humiliated, angry, still frozen. Mike turned to me. You good? I didn't answer, just stared at the ground. He sighed and glanced out the window toward the parking lot. You need a ride or just some air? I didn't know him, but right then I didn't want to be alone. I guess air, I mumbled. Truck's right outside, he said. You can sit there until you feel human again. I followed him out, my heart still pounding, ears hot with shame. I didn't even know his last name, but something about how he stood between me and those guys, I knew he wasn't just passing through. Mike unlocked the passenger door and jerked his head toward it. I slid in without saying anything. The seat was cracked vinyl, warm from the sun. His truck smelled like motor oil, coffee, and something fried. He got in, didn't start it right away. Just looked straight ahead, fingers drumming once on the steering wheel. Then he said, You okay? I shrugged. I'm fine. That was a lie. He knew it. I knew it, but he didn't push. Just nodded once and started the engine. We sat in silence for a second while the AC kicked in. Then he asked, Where am I taking you? Off Sycamore, trailer lot behind the gas station. He didn't flinch or react, just pulled out of the parking lot like it was no big deal. I kept my eyes on the side mirror. Why'd you help me? He glanced over but didn't stop driving. You looked like my son did once, before I stopped showing up. I didn't know what to say to that. I stared at my knees. The truck rattled a little as we hit a pothole. We drove for a few blocks without talking. The noise from the tires filled the silence. I finally asked, So, you a mechanic? Yeah. Own the shop 2 streets over. Used to run a little diner before that. I turned slightly. You cooked? He smirked. Still do. Built a kitchen in my garage. Cast iron, flat top, couple burners. Nothing fancy, but it works. That stuck in my head for some reason. A garage with a stove in it. I'd never seen anything like that. I barely cook, I said. We don't really have stuff to cook with. Mostly heat up whatever's in a can. You live with your folks? My uncle. He works nights, sleeps through the day. Doesn't really talk to me. Mike didn't say anything for a while. Just drove. Then, casually, like it was nothing. If you ever want to come by, mess around with some recipes, you can. No pressure. Doesn't have to be serious. I blinked. What, like, cook? He nodded. Nothing wild. Grilled cheese, eggs, soup without the can. Just real food. You don't got to be good at it. I didn't know how to respond. I'd never had anyone offer something like that. Not a teacher, not even my uncle, not for free. Why me? I asked. You don't even know me. He looked at me again. Quick glance, serious eyes. Doesn't matter, I saw something, and I've got space. I swallowed hard. The idea scared me a little. But it also, I don't know, lit something. We pulled up to the gravel drive outside my uncle's place. He parked but didn't kill the engine. I opened the door, paused. You sure? Door's open, he said. Just knock. I'm usually out back. If I'm not, I will be soon. I nodded once, climbed out, and shut the door. He pulled away slow. I stood there, the heat bouncing off the pavement, thinking about that garage kitchen. The smell of old oil in the truck still stuck to my clothes. I didn't know if I'd go, but I knew I'd think about it every day until I did. I showed up 2 days later, after pacing outside his fence for almost 10 minutes. The garage door was half open. I could hear music, something low and bluesy, and the clatter of pans. I knocked once on the frame. Mike looked up from behind a prep table. Thought that might be you. I stepped inside. The air smelled like garlic, onions, and something buttery I couldn't name. The walls were covered in old tools, dusty posters, and a rack of hanging pans. A double-burner stove sat on a metal cart near the back, next to a battered sink. It was cluttered, yeah, but warm, in a way I didn't expect. Grab that apron, he said, pointing with a spatula. The one with the rip near the pocket. It was stained and soft, with a hole right where your hand would go. I tied it tight and stood awkwardly near the counter. You ever use a knife? Not really, I said. He handed me a cutting board and a small paring knife. Then today you start slow. Bread and cheese. We're keeping it simple. He slid over a block of cheddar, a loaf of thick bread, and a stick of butter. You prep. I'll heat the pan. I hesitated, then grabbed the knife. I smirked a little and got to work. The cheese crumbled at first. I cut the bread too thick. But Mike didn't say a word. He just moved around me like a second set of eyes, flipping switches, sliding the skillet into place, adjusting flame like he was tuning a car. All right, he said. Pan's hot. Butter the bread and lay it in. I froze. Both sides? He nodded. And don't skimp. While you're listening, tell us which country you're watching from. I spread the butter, hands shaking a little, and dropped the sandwich into the pan. It hissed like it was mad at me. Now wait, he said. Don't mess with it. Let the heat do the work. I stood still, watching it brown. When I finally flipped it, it looked legit. Golden, crisp, melted edges. He ladled out soup from a dented pot, tomato thick with herbs I didn't recognize, and slid a bowl in front of me. Try it. I dipped the grilled cheese and took a bite. My shoulders dropped on instinct. It was hot, salty, cheesy, a little sweet from the soup. I didn't speak for a minute. Then I said, "That's the first real meal I've had in a while." Mike didn't blink, didn't ask why. He just said, "You did that. All I did was hand you a pan." I didn't respond, just stared at the half-eaten sandwich, wondering when the last time was someone let me mess up without making me feel stupid. He grabbed a stool and sat across from me, sipping his own soup. No lecture, no questions. We ate in silence, the skillet still warm behind us, the scent of garlic and butter clinging to everything. I didn't want to leave. After that first grilled cheese, I kept going back. Every other day at first, then almost daily. Mike didn't make a big deal about it. He'd just tilt his head toward the apron hook and say, "You hungry or you learning?" Most days, it was both. We moved past soup and sandwiches pretty quick. One afternoon, he dumped a sack of flour and eggs on the counter and said, "Today we're making pasta." I looked at him like he was crazy. "From scratch?" "Yeah," he said, cracking an egg with one hand. "You think noodles grow on trees?" It was messy as hell. Flour got everywhere. I sneezed 4 times and dropped the dough twice. But we made it. Real pasta. Slippery and soft and better than anything boxed. Next came roasted chicken, dry rubs, stuff I couldn't even pronounce. I started jotting things down in an old spiral notebook I found in the back of my closet. It still had algebra notes in it. At some point, Mike cleared a drawer and told me to keep the notebook there. We didn't talk much at first, not about real stuff. But over time, I started telling him things, not all at once, piece by piece. One night, I was chopping onions and said, "My mom left when I was 8. He didn't pause, just kept stirring the sauce. She said she'd come back, never did. Couple weeks later, my dad got picked up on drug charges. He's still inside. Mike slid a pot lid over the sauce, wiped his hands, and leaned against the counter. Who do you live with? My uncle, my mom's brother. He's not a bad guy, just not really there. Works nights, keeps to himself. We barely talk. Mike didn't nod. Didn't say damn or that sucks. Just let it sit. Then he pointed at the dough I was kneading. Less elbows, you're not wrestling it. While you're listening, tell us what city or country you're tuning in from. Another night, I asked, you got any kids? He looked up from the spice rack. Had a son, Leo. I waited, but he didn't add anything. I didn't push. Later, while we were searing chicken thighs, I asked, what happened to him? Mike didn't look away from the pan. Car wreck. He was 17. I stopped stirring the rice. You guys cook together? He nodded once. Every weekend. That stuck with me. I stared at the sizzling meat, trying to picture it. Mike and his son, laughing, flipping pancakes or grilling steaks. He used to say flavor was the only language he spoke fluently, Mike added. I looked at the notebook in my lap, half filled with my uneven handwriting and sauce stains. I think I want to learn that language, I said. Mike didn't smile. He didn't need to. Then stop under-seasoning your damn potatoes, he said, handing me the salt. I laughed, for real this time. The garage was warm that night, not just from the oven. Something about the light, the smells, the silence between us. It felt steady, like I was building something that couldn't be taken away, one pan at a time. The first Saturday I took over the kitchen, I showed up early, notebook in hand and nerves twisting my gut. Mike had the garage already warm and prepped, pans stacked, knives sharp, chicken defrosting in a bowl of water. He didn't say much when I walked in, just handed me the apron and pointed toward the cutting board. You lead, I follow. I nodded, wiped my palms on my jeans, and opened the notebook. I'd written everything out the night before: roasted potatoes with rosemary and salt, lemon garlic chicken thighs, green beans steamed just enough to keep the snap. I started with the potatoes, peeled, chopped, tossed in oil. Mike helped by rinsing herbs, but he never reached for my knife or corrected my cuts. He just watched like it mattered. Chicken next. I zested the lemon too hard and nicked my knuckle. Mike handed me a paper towel. Keep going, he said. So I did. The beans were last. Simple stuff. Boil, shock in ice water, toss with butter right before serving. By the time I slid the sheet pan of potatoes into the oven, my shirt was damp and my heartbeat felt like it was tied to the timer. But I wasn't scared, just focused. While the chicken sizzled in the skillet, Mike leaned on the counter and said, "You're not waiting for permission anymore." I didn't look up. I don't need it. Dinner took about an hour, start to finish. We plated everything clean, 3 pieces of chicken each, a scoop of potatoes, a pile of green beans. I waited for him to take the first bite. He didn't. He waited for me. So I did. The potatoes were crispy on the edges, chicken bright and sharp with lemon, soft inside. Beans still green, still alive. After 2 bites, I said, "I want to make something that makes people shut up when they eat." Mike grinned. "Then you need your own recipe." We cleared the plates, didn't even talk while doing it. Afterward, he pulled out a fresh sheet of paper and tossed me a pen. "Let's brainstorm." I stared at the blank page. My mind was already spinning. My mom used to make this thing, lamb with lentils. But it was always dry and the seasoning was off. I think I could fix it. "Start there," he said. "What do you remember about it?" I closed my eyes. Smelled like cinnamon and cumin. She used to toast the spices too long, so everything tasted bitter, but the idea was there. Mike nodded. "We can build on that. Add some acid, balance it. Think about texture too. You want something that lingers, not something that punches once and dies." I started writing. He threw out suggestions: flatbread for crunch, slow-cooked onions for sweetness, yogurt drizzle maybe. It felt like solving a puzzle I didn't know I was smart enough to crack. Then he leaned back and said, casual as ever, "There's a regional teen cook-off in 2 months. Could be worth thinking about." I looked up. "Like, compete?" He shrugged. "Why not? I've seen what you can do. This'd give you a deadline, a reason to dial it in." I didn't say yes right away. My gut twisted again. the way it did before a test I hadn't studied for. But this was different. This was mine. Okay, I said. But if I do it, I want that dish to be the one. Mike pushed the paper toward me. Then let's make something they can't ignore. I mentioned the cook-off at lunch, casually, like it was no big deal. I should have known better. Tyler overheard. Of course he did. I saw the way his head snapped around. You, he said, loud enough to draw stares. You're entering a cooking competition? I kept eating. Didn't look at him. Ryan leaned in from across the table. What's your dish, Noah? Microwave mac and cheese with a side of pity? I stood up, tray in hand, heart pounding. It's a lamb stew, with lentils, flatbread. Tyler grinned. Damn, sounds fancy. Your little boyfriend Mike teach you that? I froze. He kept going. What's his deal anyway? Dudes don't just hang out with kids for fun. That one landed. Laughter rippled down the table. I dumped my tray and walked out before I did something I'd regret. By the end of the day, the rumors were flying, people whispering in the halls. One girl asked me if Mike was my sugar grandpa. I shoved my books in my locker so hard the door bounced open again. A day later, Mike got a call. I was in the garage, setting up the cutting board, when I heard his tone shift. I'm sorry, what's the concern? Pause. No, he's not unsupervised. Look, I'm just helping him cook. Silence. Then, sharper. You think this is inappropriate? I stopped moving. My stomach turned cold. Another pause. I lost a son. That kid was getting picked on. I stepped in. That's it. I backed away from the counter. Mike's voice was still calm, but I could tell he was rattled. No, I'm not going to stop unless Noah tells me to. I didn't wait to hear the rest. I grabbed my bag and slipped out the side door. He didn't chase me, didn't text, didn't knock on my uncle's door. But every night that week, I saw the garage light on when I walked past. I didn't go in. I didn't even look through the window. The fifth night, I stood in the driveway for a long time, hands in my pockets, wind biting at my neck. Then I walked in without knocking. Mike was at the stove, stirring something that smelled like ginger and garlic. He turned but didn't speak. I dropped my bag. I don't care what they think. Still quiet. I'm doing the competition. Mike set down the spoon. You sure? Yeah. I'm not going to let those guys decide what I get to be good at. His eyes softened just enough. He picked up a kitchen towel and tossed it at me. Then let's make the dish that shuts them all up. I caught it. We didn't say anything else, just got to work. He handed me the spice grinder. I measured the cumin and coriander. He slid the meat out of the fridge without a word. It was different after that. The silence was heavier, but not in a bad way, like we both knew what was at stake now. We weren't just making food. We were building something that no rumor could touch. We didn't talk much that first night back, just cooked. Mike pulled out the lamb shoulder and handed me the boning knife. Trim the fat, not all of it, just the silver skin. I nodded, head down, hands steady. That night kicked off 2 straight weeks of late nights in the garage, school, homework, then straight to Mike's. We tested spice blends, adjusted the lentil cook time, argued about when to add the lemon juice. He let me take the lead, but didn't let me slack either. Plating matters, he said, setting down 3 mismatched bowls on the counter. Your food can be gold, but if it looks like dog food, they won't taste it right. I tried spooning the stew neatly. Failed. Tried again. Better. Then I added a drizzle of yogurt and a pinch of fresh parsley. Better, he said. Now explain it, out loud. What? You'll have to talk while you plate. It's not just about cooking, it's presentation. You need to sound like you believe in it. I cleared my throat. Tonight I'm serving a spiced lamb and lentil stew. Slower, like you've made this 100 times. I started again. Tonight I'm serving a spiced lamb and lentil stew, finished with lemon and garlic and served with... Breathe, he said. You're not selling a vacuum, you're feeding someone. It felt dumb at first, talking out loud to no one. But after a few nights I got into it. I found a rhythm. My voice settled. Mike crossed his arms and nodded while I spoke. You're not cooking to impress, he said. You're cooking to exist, to take up space. The words hit harder than I expected. I didn't answer, just kept practicing. One night, we messed up. I left the stew on high too long while trying to fix the flatbread dough. Burned the bottom to hell. Whole kitchen filled with smoke. I dropped the ladle, panicked. Crap, I ruined it. Mike grabbed the pot, yanked it off the burner, and set it outside. Then he opened the door, fanned the smoke out, and looked at me. "Screw the burn," he said. "Learn from the smoke." I blinked. "You'll mess up," he added. "But if you don't burn it once, you won't know where the edge is." The next batch, perfect, meat tender. Lentils thick but not mushy. The lemon hit like a soft punch at the end. The final night before the competition, we didn't talk much, just cooked, ate, and cleaned. He set 2 bowls on the counter. We sat on the stools and ate in silence. No music, no critique, just the food. Halfway through my bowl, I said, "You think Leo would have liked this?" Mike didn't answer right away. He kept chewing, eyes on the stew like it was more than just dinner. Then he nodded. "Yeah, he'd have been mad you beat him to it." I laughed, low and tired. "You think I can win?" I asked. He looked over. "That's not the question," I frowned. "Then what is it? Do you believe it deserves to be tasted?" I didn't answer. I just kept eating. The flavors lingered, smoky, warm, sharp in the right spots. For once, I didn't feel small. The convention center kitchen was chaos. 12 portable stations, bright overhead lights. A crowd of parents, judges, and organizers buzzing just beyond the roped-off edge. Each competitor had their own space, ingredients, and clock. I stood at Station 7, worn thrift store apron, my old notebook folded in my back pocket. To my left, a girl from some prep school unpacked her monogram knife roll. Her dad adjusted the height of her cutting board like she was in a NASA simulator. To my right, Tyler Collins. He spotted me and grinned like this was a joke he'd been saving for months. "Wow," he said. "Hope you brought a microwave." I didn't even blink. Instead, I unwrapped the lamb, checked the lentils, turned my burners on. I didn't care about the crowd or the cameras. Not anymore. I just wanted the stew to speak. Behind the ropes, Mike stood with his arms crossed, ball cap low over his eyes. Didn't wave, didn't mouth good luck. Just nodded once. It was enough. When the timer hit 0, I moved. Spices in the pan, cumin, coriander, cinnamon, until they bloomed and filled the air. The smell hit fast and sharp, and I could already see one judge lean slightly toward my station. Lamb hit the oil next, sizzled loud. I kept stirring, focused, breathed like Mike taught me. While you're listening, drop your city or country in the comments below. Some kids fumbled. One dropped a bowl of rice. Another sliced too hard and got flagged for a cut glove. I didn't look at them. I had onions to caramelize, lentils to simmer, flatbread to flip. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't crack when I started speaking. Tonight, I'm serving a spiced lamb and lentil stew with caramelized onion, lemon, and toasted garlic. It's based on something my mom used to make, but finished with the kind of flavor that tells the truth. Judge number 2 looked up when I said that. I kept going. The flatbread brings crunch. The lemon cuts the depth. The goal is balance, not just in taste, but in memory. I plated everything in a deep white bowl. Clean drizzle of yogurt, pinch of herbs. Done. I stepped back. Tyler was still scrambling, his dish sloppy and rushed. He looked over at mine and scowled. Mike stood exactly where he had been, watching, that faint smile still on his face. The judges made their rounds. One leaned in close and sniffed my dish twice. The first bite stopped the table. No dramatic gasps, no clapping. Just silence. That kind of silence that hangs in the air when people are surprised by something they didn't expect. One judge wrote something quickly. Another looked up at me, head tilted slightly, eyes focused. Then came a quiet, "Thank you," and they moved on. I exhaled. I didn't win yet. Might not win at all, but they tasted it. All of it. The spice, the effort, the piece of me I'd folded into every bite. And nobody laughed. They called second place first. My name echoed through the loudspeaker, then again from the MC at the mic. Runner-up and winner of Best Original Concept, Noah Briggs. People clapped, then they kept clapping, longer than they had for the kid who took first. I stepped up, shaking hands with the judge who'd looked up at me during the tasting. He handed me a plaque, said something about how the flavors were bold and honest. I nodded, said thank you, and walked off stage before my knees buckled. Mike was waiting by the exit. He didn't hug me, didn't say, "I'm proud of you," just slapped the back of my shoulder and said, "Told you." As we headed out, someone tapped my arm. Ms. Carter, my English teacher, the one who marked me absent even when I was sitting in the back row. She smiled like I was some brand new person. I had no idea you could do that. I looked her dead in the eye. You never asked? We didn't stick around for photos or interviews. I didn't care about that. Back at the garage, the smell of garlic and old grease hit me like home. Mike disappeared into the back and came out holding a small wooden box, sanded smooth, edges rounded. "Open it," he said, setting it on the counter. Inside were recipe cards. All of them. Grilled cheese, roasted chicken, pasta, the stew. His handwriting on some, mine on others. A few smudged with oil or spice. One was written in pencil, nearly faded. At the top of the pile was one in thick black marker. Flavors don't lie. Neither do people who make them. I swallowed hard. You made all of those, Mike said. Might as well keep the record. I pulled a blank card from the bottom and grabbed a pen. I wrote slow, like it mattered, like it would last. I'm not a leftover. I'm my own recipe. Mike read it, then took a thumbtack from the board behind him and pinned it next to the light switch, right above where we kept the salt. We didn't say anything after that. Didn't need to. About a month later, the garage smelled like grilled meat, fresh rolls, and too many people talking over each other. Mike had dragged out folding tables, covered them with plastic cloths, and set up coolers filled with drinks. Old diner regulars from his past life mingled with kids from school, a few teachers, some parents. A couple of the guys who used to laugh at me were now lined up with paper plates in their hands, waiting for a second helping. I was running the grill like I owned it, flipping burgers, slicing roasted veggies, calling out to the kids manning the side table. Hey, keep the coleslaw stocked. I wasn't quiet anymore. I didn't need to be. Some girl I didn't recognize asked, "What's in the sauce?" I shrugged, wiped my hands. Start with what you miss, then add what you have. She smiled like I'd just handed her a secret. Emily showed up a little after sunset, dark jeans, button-down shirt, her hair in a braid. She walked in like she'd been here before. Maybe she had. Mike nodded when he saw her and handed her a plate of cookies to pass around. She moved through the tables like she belonged, then paused near the grill, watching me laugh with a few of the younger kids who were helping serve. Later, while Mike restocked the bread basket, she leaned toward him and said quietly, "You're not just feeding him, you're rebuilding him." He didn't smile, just kept stacking rolls. "He's doing most of the building," he said. "I just unlocked the pantry." The crowd thinned out after 10, plates in trash bags, drinks half finished, music still playing soft from someone's speaker. The porch light buzzed above us, drawing moths. I ducked inside to grab a towel and ended up wiping down the whole prep table. Habit. When I turned to head out, I spotted a folded note by the sink, tucked half under the cutting board. My handwriting. Mike picked it up, read it quietly. "You didn't fix me. You just reminded me I could cook something better. Thanks for never turning off the light." He didn't say anything, just walked over, opened the recipe box, and slid the note inside. Laughter echoed outside. A kid shouted something about ketchup. Somebody else cracked a joke about who burnt the hot dogs. Inside, the garage was still warm. Garlic clung to the air. Bread sat cooling on the back table. It smelled like the start of something. Thank you for being with us. Don't miss our new stories. They're coming soon. If you haven't yet, please leave a like and follow the page to see more great content. Your support means a lot to us and motivates us to create even more warm, meaningful stories. See you next time. Take care and stay curious.